All right. Well, 100 episodes, Mark. This is episode
Wild.
100.
Okay, from scale to 0 to 10, 0 being like there's no fucking way we hit 100, to 10 is like for sure we're hit 100, no question. Where were you on episode 5 on that scale that we were gonna hit 100?
1 out of 10, probably. You?
Yeah, probably. I don't think I even asked that question to begin with. It was more of like how we hit to 10, but yeah, I would say like if you asked me that question back then and trying to tap into that feeling, probably like a 2. That would be my
I
that
still
would be
wasn't
my
even
answer.
sure we could get to 100 downloads at episode 5.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't
Look,
even
it's been 2 years. Like
2
so,
years.
if
Wow.
we were planning to publish every single week, and we got it to episode 5, that must have been we were like 5 weeks in,
Yeah.
and um we were recording just in time, not that different than what we do today. Like we were just, constant recording every week, publishing. And so the idea of episode 100 would have meant thinking 2 years into the future. And I never, I mean, sometimes I think about 2 years into the future, but like, boy, is it blurry in my head and does it feel very non-committal. Yeah, episode 100 never occurred to me, and yet it's not surprising to me that we're here.
Mm, yeah.
Like as we've gone, it's become more and more and more likely. I'd say starting maybe around episode 20 is when I probably would have gone to maybe like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. And then once we got to episode 50, I think I was kind of like, we're definitely going to hit episode 100. This is like a 9 or 10 out of
Yeah.
10 probability.
Yeah. I would say it's very similar. Like I think there are like a couple inflection points for me. I think one was I just kind of remember being a little bit nervous the first like 5 episodes, like almost like a little bit of an imposter, also like not wanting to sound stupid, also like making sure that like, I've done my homework and that I have good questions to ask, and also like making sure that I'm like listening to you and like respecting when you want to ask a question. And like, I think those initial episodes, it was like a little bit harder to enjoy the experience because like you were just like trying to do a good job, and you were just like more focused about the optics. And I think over time that I like learned how to be very present on the conversation, and really enjoy that, and really just like take in the guest, and learn from them, and really just block everything. And then I think the other big change for me too was when we brought interim into editing the podcast, because like it went from being like maybe like a 6 hour to 8 hour a week commitment of like just work. Like I remember like spending like Sundays, like 4 or 5 hours, like just like listening to the podcast and then re-listening, and like just, getting rid of filler words and, sentences or questions that were not good. And that was just like kind of like a huge unlock. And then at that point, it's like, okay, like, why wouldn't we do this? Right. Like we're just literally blocking. It's almost like we're blocking 1 hour to either learn or talk to someone that we want to talk to, and just have fun. And while we're at it too, like improve our active listening skills, our talking skills. So yeah, I think around that time it was like, yeah, I want to keep doing this, and I want to protect it with everything I can, even if no one listens. Like I think that we've mentioned that a few times.
Totally agree. I think those early, so there's a lot there just to unpack. So like the starting at the beginning, yeah, we used to have like a doc that had our questions, like a Google Doc, and we wanted to, make sure we answered all of our questions, and we were transitioning kind of awkwardly and weren't really like we weren't really sure who we were as far as like podcasting goes. We were just trying to find our authentic self. And then um,
By the way, do you
I
think we should
think,
send an apology letter to those initial like 5 to 10 guests? Be like, sorry guys, you kind of got an inferior experience.
yeah,
You're welcome back if you're
come back.
interested.
Yeah, I got to go back and see I honestly don't even remember who the first 5 guests were. I know Josh Duty was one of them because I was recently
Yeah,
talking to someone about comp negotiation. Um, but I would say that was definitely, I'd say around the non episode from when non you joined us from Linear, and we had to re-record that one. He was kind enough to do that with us because we just kept going to the next question and realized we weren't like following our own natural curiosity. That was a really important evolution. from a editorial voice and kind of like and format perspective. But what you said about Tareem is insanely true, and I'm happy she's hearing this while she's editing this because I want her to know that I deeply, deeply appreciate her, and we talk as a team every day. Like, I think
Yeah.
like, that's by far the most active Slack channel I'm part of, as far as, like, discussions go these days, and Tareem has great ideas. She's super responsive, very diligent, very reliable, great communicator. So, the ability to have someone help us, so that we could focus on the things that we're kind of, like, more uniquely positioned to do with the podcast, while still celebrating those wins with us along the way, I think has been really helpful. And there's no way I think we could get to 100 episodes without someone helping us in that sense. Um, so she's an indispensable part of the team. I think the other thing that made this more sustainable for us, even with someone like Tareem helping us, is when we decided to stop recording the intros too. Because we basically used to have to like scramble to find more time to like record the intros, and we found that we didn't really like enjoy them. And I remember we did like 4 or 5 takes. Like, it was just kind of like pulling teeth. And are you gonna
Yeah.
do which one? Am I gonna do like the guest part, and you're gonna do the what we talked about part, or are we gonna take turns? Like, that
Yeah.
was this like
And then
shuffle that
we
I didn't
and then
enjoy.
we would do one each, basically. Like, we'd try to split it evenly, but then like it would happen like one of us would record three and then the other one two. So it's just like, yeah, there is too much friction there.
Too much friction. And look, we've just continued to make like a bunch of small changes. Like, I don't know if every week we make changes, but it's got to be like definitely multiple changes per month since we've started this, 24 months ago. And we're still making the changes. Like recently, like the shift to speaker view instead of just gallery view, but speaker view and gallery view, and having a watermark, and
Gratitude
um,
corner.
gratitude corner, and just like and also just getting advice and realizing like the key to podcast growth is consistency and quality over long periods of time. So, um, which is another way of saying basically just keep doing what you're doing, right? And I think it was kind of validating to get that from people who know what they're talking about, like Fiona from Substack. So, if you if I'd ask now, how likely is it that we hit episode 200? I'm feeling like 6 or 7 out of 10 likelihood. I think if we don't get there, it's because it will have stopped being fun for us for some reason.
Or something happened to one of us.
Something happened to one of us. I gotta put in my will that Mark is allowed to keep running the podcast without me if something
Dude, I don't know if I
happens.
could, man. I don't know if I could. Um, I mean, and I think that's been another learning. Like, it's just not as fun when you do it alone, right? Like, it's just, well, it's a different kind of fun, right? Like, but the overall experience, in my opinion, is inferior. If you, I don't, actually, like, I would be curious to hear from the listener what they think. But from a host perspective, right? It's almost like when you're in the recording, like, I'm a little bit more relaxed. I'm like, hey, like, if at some point I blank, right, or I don't have something to say, like, I'll know you have something to say, right? And and also like just interesting to see like what you notice that I don't notice, and where you take the conversation. Like, it just takes unexpected turns that then lead to a new area that I would have not explored. But then I'm curious, so um, it's just fun. And I think another thing that I've also really enjoyed is like getting to know your friends through the podcast. Like, I think you've or people that have played a key role in your life. That's also been like really cool, right? And in a way, I almost feel like I get to tap into that like connection that you have, because like that's already going, and people use that as like the main almost anchor to the podcast. So that's been also really cool.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, feelings mutual when we bring people on that from your life. It's always cool to get to know them. Um, and I agree. The 3-person conversation, like, folks listening to this will not have seen the episode yet, but I think episode 101 or 102 is going to be with my friend Elon Miller, and that's one that I recorded in person in New York. And Elon is also like a friend I've known for like, I don't know, 20 years or something at this point, but he was kind of cool enough to play game with me and meet up in person and do a live podcast recording. And I definitely felt more pressure to I guess like perform or be present or keep the conversation moving than I do in a 3-person like sometimes I'm sitting, like when we talk to someone, I'm sitting with something that either you say or they say, and I don't know yet what I want to like. I'm not really thinking about the next thing I want to say. I'm just trying to sit with it and make sense of it in my head. And hearing the other two people ping pong a little while I'm chewing can take me to the next place in my head that gets me to know what I want to say or buy me some time. And that makes it more fun too. I mean, I've listened back to some of our episodes where like I hear myself jump in with something that feels like it was like teed up like a minute before or something, or like a minute and a half before. I'm like, oh wow, I was really like sitting with that one. Cause like when you listen, when you're just listening as an audience member, all you can really hear is what is actually being said. You don't hear the inner dialogue of anyone who's, in the conversation. But if someone is, on Riverside with us watching our faces while we're talking, there's very clearly moments where I see you're thinking, like your gears are turning, or like the guest's gears are turning, or my gears are turning because I'm not even looking at the screen. I'm like looking to the side and I'm just like processing. I mean, that's like the learning piece, right? Like if you're just talking the whole time, it's kind of hard to really sit with it, like let anything impact you, which is kind of why it's so impressive to me that the one-on-one podcast shows, some of them are so enduring and some of them have so much longevity because it's man, is it tiring to do like one on one. Like I think you kind of have to be like leaning into the entertainment side of it
Oh, for
more
sure.
than the learning side if you're really trying to kind of keep a conversation moving. Unless you're Lex Friedman and you don't mind being quiet for like sometimes he'll just be quiet for 10 seconds as he's like thinking about something and it's like okay, if you're Lex Friedman maybe you could do that.
Totally.
Uh,
Yeah. Or Joe Rogan, that I feel like he just doesn't really like give a shit. He's just like loves shooting the shit and just like will say random stuff. And yeah, it's just more of like it's totally like that. Like you're just, you know, hanging out. But it definitely must be weird to be his guest when you have like, like guaranteed like probably like 10 million views for whatever you do. And you just have to have a normal conversation and you know that, whatever you say, it's gonna be amplified to another level. But yeah, I think to me that's like the key for us to keep growing is to keep recording consistently. And I think the way we keep recording consistently is we make the podcast fit within our lives, right? And within our lifestyle. And I think unfortunately, neither of us know what our lifestyle is going to look like in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So I think in a way, the way I think about it, like our competitive advantage is like our flexibility and adaptability, right? Like I think we're both very comfortable making changes. I think what I like about the way we work, not just in the podcast, but also like in Insider Loops and any other work we do together, is we don't really wrestle with decisions for too long, like unless they're like hard to reverse. But like if we can just test it quickly, like that's like our way of operating, and then we just like are able to like get signal much faster, right? And I think once you start working that way, it's really hard to go back to the other way because it's just not
I
as
mean, I've
fun.
never
One,
liked working the other way,
yeah,
is the truth. And I think we've just continued to give each other permission to work in the way that we want to work. So it's kind of created this virtuous cycle where now you'll hold me accountable to work in the way I want to work, sometimes better than even I hold myself accountable to it. Um, and because we talk a lot about our goals and our, like around December, January, we were very open with each other about kind of like how we're approaching the new year with a desire for more focus, more simplicity, just kind of like discipline and consistency of like the things that we've committed to. And so being able to point to those things with decisions is also really helpful because we have those together. I'll admit I was trying to pull you into doing more on the podcast side this year and I'm happy that you held me accountable to my own kind of like goals. But also empowered me to like go experiment. You're like, hey, you want to experiment with like one-on-one episodes? Go try it out, see how it feels. You want to do in person episodes? Go try it out, see how it feels, right? And like one of the things I'm proud of about myself is just like I don't need a lot of reps with something to get the learnings. Like usually like one or two reps of something will give me like 80-90% of the learnings. So um for example, I don't know if I want to do more in-person podcasts as like a regular habit because like they're pretty time consuming. It's really fun, but they're very like, instead of it being like an hour and a half on the calendar, it's like a 4-hour commitment because I have to go into the city and I have to like settle in and do all the things and be like a real human in person with people. So I think that's an example of a learning that we didn't discuss it. We just like try it out, see how it feels.
totally. And Yeah, I'm curious, maybe looking forward in, let's say, like, what are you most excited for next, like, 100 episodes?
Sometimes when you're just like so in a flow with something and just, you enjoy doing it, um, or at least that when I'm doing, I don't think about all the things to improve about it, and obviously a lot of things in life are not in that state all the time, so I am thinking about how to improve them. But for me, the at a high level, the podcast in its current format, I think is like really good for us. Like I think it's a really good fit. So, um, what I would like us to get better at and continue to use as an anchor is just like really sensitizing ourselves to what are the leading indicators of a really fun and good conversation. Guest selection, topic selection, even things like recording times or like days of the week or the relationship between the recording slide and other things in our life. Like if we could start noticing patterns of basically just like what can we do to maximize the chances that like that time on the calendar is going to be as enjoyable and engaging and kind of like energizing as possible, then I know if we can get that right for the recording slots, everything that happens downstream from the recording slots will be really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that to me is pretty top of mind too. I think the guest selection, topic selection, and I actually like the way we set up our recording times. Like I think it just works for us. And I just really like that it's just like blocked and like almost sacred time that I don't touch. Like actually I think that's just like such another example of like a change that we've made that, it was probably not obvious in the beginning, but now it's like super obvious and it's just like it's so nice. Like we don't have to do back and forth. Like these are the slots that we have and it hasn't been a problem like at all, which has been
And that's how
surprising to
other
be honest.
podcasts do it too. I've been on a few other podcasts and like they basically all do that too.
Yeah. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think, and it's funny. Like I don't think we spend a lot of time together thinking strategically about guest selection or topic selection. Like I think it's very much like I wouldn't say reactive, but it is very much like almost like a check mark that we do, and I think it's purely intuition based, which I think is part of it is good. But I don't think like for example we sit down once a month and be like, hey, like let's go back, reflect on the conversations we just had this month. Which ones did we like? Like almost like we're not like updating ourselves. We're into like what makes a good conversation. Like I think we've had two or three like very peak conversations where we're like, okay, like we want more of those. But I'm sure there's also probably learnings in kind of like in the middle, right? On kind of what we can improve there. And then the other thing that I'm excited about too, like is, and we've talked the two of us a bunch about this, especially when we were talking about the like acquired 10-year reflection, which is something that we recorded that we never published, but something that we can consider in the future. I think because of how crazy the tech world is right now and how fast everything is moving, it's so easy to get sucked into that novelty. But I think the downside of that, I think that it's that our content then has a short shelf life. And I don't want to be like being say, hey, actually, we shouldn't talk about those things. Like, actually, I really enjoy them, and it's also like a great forcing function to me to be on top of it. But I do think there's also an opportunity for us to talk about more timeless topics that we're both excited about, and I think that kind of creates like a more valuable asset over time. And also, I think it forces me to think about other things that are interesting that are not just like in that kind of echo chamber of tech.
And you haven't listened to the dialectic interview with the TBPN guys yet, have you?
No, I haven't. No.
So that, I'll tee that up on your list, but that presents a diametrically opposed view of what
Mm.
makes a long-term valuable podcast because those guys have zero catalog value. It's very day of relevant. And I would argue they're building a pretty valuable brand and a pretty valuable like business as well, just in their own different way. When I was done listening to that, I'm like, okay, I went from like thinking like the way the acquired guys do things is almost like quote unquote like the right way for in some sense. Like it's obviously not all right for us. But then I listened to the TBPN thing and I'm like, there's such little overlap between what makes both of those shows successful. And I do think one is 10 years old, one is 1 year old. But because one goes live every day for like 5 days a week, it feels like it's been around like a lot longer than 1 year. And, we're doing a weekly show. It's like some current events, but also some longer term stuff. But the commonalities I see across like what they do and what the acquired guys do and what we do is two co-hosts who really enjoy talking to each other and really enjoy spending time with each other and really enjoy working together and are constantly obsessed with making the thing better over time and making it feel more authentic and true to themselves and making sure it fits their life and their goals and not wanting to expose the show to any inorganic pressures that force it to be something that it isn't. And I think that's kind of like the stuff that's true for all of us. Um, so, anyways, I know you've got a day full of meetings. I've got some stuff I got to get done too. But I just want to say it's been freaking awesome doing this podcast with you. I'm really proud of us that we got to 100. So, high five.
Let's go,
Um,
man. The feeling is
and
mutual. And
I'm
yeah, man,
excited
I
for
like,
the next 100.
yeah, I don't think it's like an exaggeration when I say like, the recording slots is probably my favorite time of the week. And I think we've both been lucky to do very exciting work. And the fact that that continues to be true, I think we cannot ignore that part. So yeah, let's keep doing, man. I just feel like it's such a gift in my life, and it's been cool that as we've recorded more podcasts, more people are listening. But again, I don't think that's the point. Let's keep going, man.
Let's do it.
Okay,
All
homie.
right. That's a
That
wrap.
that's a wrap. Bye bye.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone who you think would benefit from it as well. We really appreciate it. We'd also love a follow or a rating on Substack, Spotify, or YouTube. That's going to let other people find us. And if you have any topic recommendations for a future episode, please send myself or Mark a DM on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.